This week, one of my parents' friends experienced a tragedy. Their daughter, who was my age, died suddenly from a hidden medical issue they didn't discover until it was too late. My parents live far away from me, and as do their friends and their daughter. I'd never even met her. And yet I have spent all week holding their grief, the grief of their loss, and feeling the pain of the circles of people that I know this would impact. It's been heavy and at times even overwhelming. You might think I felt so strongly because we were similar in age and shared some similarities, but these were mostly superficial similarities. More, I think what happened is that I started to hear enough of her story that in learning of her death, I connected in with empathy and compassion. That is the softened heart broken open by our common experience of suffering and the risk of loving and living at all. When we bear witness to another's pain, our hearts open in compassion. It is how we can protect that universal notion of a common humanity, even in the face of so many forces today that seek to divide and destroy us. Bearing witness is an essential part of responding faithfully to injustice and pain for each of us individually and for all of us collectively. And we must do this work of bearing witness with intention. We must be intentional about what stories we hear and tell. I mean, with the internet and given that we're at peak globalization today, there are simply too many stories, too many places of pain and injustice for a single heart to hold. I mean, just scroll through your social media feed at any given time or listen at all to the BBC. It doesn't take long to find overwhelming economic and political collapse in more than one area across the globe, or to encounter devastating violence or extreme drought or flooding, hurricanes, fires, the impact everywhere of increasing climate change. Or find extreme and far-reaching poverty, food shortages, disease outbreaks, millions of people leaving their homes only to find increasing xenophobia, racism, and the lie that there is not enough goodness in this world to share. Attempting to bear witness to it all can easily lead us into overwhelm, which is mostly paralyzing or numbing or both. But even more importantly, bearing witness unintentionally leaves no space to hear the other things that are also true across the globe. That is, the stories of resilience and resistance, exemplified by the women protesting in Iran right now, or the stories of the persistence of the human spirit of creativity and beauty modeled by Estonian music during the Soviet occupation, and also in the ways that Estonia is making music for Ukraine right now, or in the ways that we here at Foothills are turning towards beauty, making music together now, or even dreaming about future drum lines. Bearing witness to these also true stories of celebration and survival, it's the fuel, it's the food that will sustain us in our compassion as we bear witness to the brokenness. It is the reminder of the world we are fighting for. Being intentional in what we bear witness to does not mean simple, willful ignorance afforded by our relative privilege. It requires instead a commitment to seeking out stories that are outside our own immediate circle, stories beyond our families, beyond our city, beyond northern Colorado, beyond the United States, and then paying attention to where this expanded sense of compassion threatens to overwhelm and shut us down. And then intentionally seeking out those other stories too. Those stories of celebration and joy and beauty. It is a practice of sitting with all of these stories in their wholeness. It is a practice that could also be called a sacrament. Or at least it can be when we understand it as part of a collective act. In the same way that we say we each have a piece of the truth, we must understand also that we are each called to bear witness to a piece of the story. As Unitarian Universalists, we know we are not in this life or in this work alone. We're part of a network. That is a network that includes organizations and institutions like the UU service community, or the UU at the UN office, or the UU international office, or at least after today, I know you know that, alongside other Unitarian Universalist congregations and the other faith communities and activist organizations and institutions who share our values. Each of these bear witness to a part of this world's story as well. To bear witness with intention is to bear witness to these other organizations and their vision too, to support them and uplift them whenever and however we can. None of us are called to bear witness to it all. But when we recognize bearing witness as an act of partnership, where we intentionally understand ourselves as a part of an ecosystem that holds suffering and amplifies resistance and celebrates beauty and seeks healing, then this work becomes not overwhelming, but sustaining and energizing. We can pay attention with our full hearts, open and soft and ready to keep breaking open, choosing to respond again and again with love. May it be so, and amen.